Starring Bela Day in...
But Ma, that's my favorite movie. Oh, well, all right. But don't you spend too much time in front of that TV, do you hear me? Yes, Ma. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second episode of the second season of my podcast. But Ma, that's my favorite movie. And I am your host, Bela Day. Now, before we go any further, you already know what time it is. I have to thank my listeners. If you're a returning listener, thank you so much for coming back. You're a real one, period. And if you're one of the new listeners, well, thank you so much for stopping by, for giving my podcast a listen. And you know what? You are definitely in for a treat, which will keep you coming back for more. All right, now, I do want to let you know that if you've been listening to my podcast so far, and if you have any ideas of any themes or particular movies you would like me to share with my audience, then you can do that by going to my website, butma.that'smyfavoritemovie.com. And on the homepage towards the bottom, there is a box where you can type in your name, your email, and you can put in whatever movie, whatever theme you have, or maybe you have an idea with a theme and you already have two movies you would like to be talked to under that theme. So yes, I am open to suggestions. Definitely go ahead and submit those bad boys if you have some ideas that you would like me to share on my podcast as far as movies or particular theme. Now, all right. Today's episode is titled, But Ma, That's My Favorite John Hughes Movie. So, as you can tell, this is going to be dedicated to the filmmaker John Hughes. Now, do keep in mind, towards the end of the episode, I am actually going to be talking about an update to the contest. So definitely stay tuned towards the end of the episode where I will be giving an update on the contest. All right, so we're talking about John Hughes movies. So it only feels appropriate to give a brief summary of who John Hughes was, how he started, all that good stuff, okay? All right, so John was what I like to say, the golden director of the 80s, okay? Because he had classics after classics after classics. Like, he pretty much ran the 80s with a bunch of classics, such as Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, The Breakfast Club, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, 16 Candles, and so much more. John was born on February 18th, 1950 in Lansing, Michigan. And he actually had dropped out of the University of Arizona, and he initially started selling jokes to performers such as Rodney Dangerfield and Joan Rivers. And then he'd end up getting an entry-level job at Needham, Harper, and Steers, which was an advertising company, and he was a copywriter. And this company actually was located in Chicago, and this was around 1970. Now, in 1974, he actually went to work for another advertising company that was called Leo Burnett Worldwide, okay? And then at that particular firm, I think that's what they call it? Advertising firm, I think. But yeah, so he actually there had created the famous Edge shaving phone campaign. Where basically it was the credit card shaving test. And so what they were advertising was basically the credit card was determining how close of a shave that you got, right? And their whole thing is saying that their foam is going to give you the closest shave. And there's actually a commercial you can look up because the shaving cream, it was called Edge. You can look up like Edge foam, or you can look up the credit card shaving test. And what they would do is they would rub it against, like, from the jawline to the cheek, or the cheek to the jawline, and they would rub it against it. And if you heard a louder sound, it means that you didn't get quite a close shave. But if you rubbed it and you didn't hardly hear anything, that means you got to shave pretty close. And that was their whole gimmick, was like, hey, this is how we know you have the closest shave with our product. So he was definitely famous for, creating that ad. Um, and then John had ended up working for the Virginia Slims account, which then introduced him to the Philip Morris headquarters in New York City. And this allowed him to visit the offices of National Lampoon magazine. Does that sound kind of familiar? I bet it does. Now, basically, not too long after being intrigued with this magazine, since he got to visit the headquarters where the magazine was, he actually ended up becoming a contributor to that magazine by writing humorous essays for the National Lampoon. Now, he actually, some of his essays actually involved a vacation that he would write. He wrote a couple essays about a vacation that he had as a child. And as we know, the National Lampoon Vacation movies was heavily inspired by that. It was basically based off of his essays. And he was actually the screenwriter of the first National Lampoon Vacation, which makes sense because that's where they got the idea from, was from him. Now, according to one of the editors of the magazine, P.J. O'Rourke, he actually said that he wrote so fast and well that it was actually hard for the monthly magazine to keep up with him. So this definitely seemed like the whole writing thing, the comedic timing. John was good at this. This is what he was absolutely made for, right? And so not only is he a filmmaker, like I mentioned, he wrote for the magazine, he was also a writer for some classics such as Mr. Mom, Pretty in Pink, Uncle Buck, Home Alone, and more. Now, when I was looking through all of his, credentials and stuff, I did see Pretty in Pink because that's one I definitely know is by John Hughes, but I didn't realize he didn't actually direct that movie. He directed 16 Candles, but he did not direct Pretty in Pink. He was the writer for it. So I thought that was very interesting. I said, oh, okay, that's cool. And sadly, Hughes did die on August 6, 2009 from a heart attack. And what's even worse is he'd actually visited New York to see his son who just had birthed his grandson. So reading that was super, sad to read because from my understanding, I mean, I really have never looked up John Hughes like that or kept up with him. And when I was doing this little bit of research that I did and I saw that he had died, I was a little disappointed and because I just assumed he was still alive. But that's very sad. So definitely RIP John Hughes. But the great thing is he left his legacy behind. His movies are always going to live on because they are definitely classics. They're always going to be watched and they're always going to be talked about, just like what I'm doing in this episode today. So we definitely appreciate all the work that he contributed and, gave to all of us movie lovers. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get into the movies because I know that is what y'all are here for. All right, so we have two movies we're going to talk about today. I'm going to do something a little different. So we got Weird Science and Breakfast Club. Now, which one am I going to do first? All right, here we go. Lights, camera, action. There's going to be sex, drugs, rock and roll, chips, dips, chains, whips. Your basic high school orgy type of thing. I mean, we're not talking candle wax on the nipples or witchcraft or anything like that. No. Just a couple of 100 kids running around in their underwear acting like complete animals. All right, that quote is by Lisa, played by Kelly LeBrock. And the first movie we're going to be talking about is Weird Science. No. I wish I could play this song because that song is a bop. Okay. I love Weird Science. That song is so good. Okay. This movie was released August 2nd, 1985. And of course, it was directed and written by John Hughes. And that is what made him so great. Not only was he a great director, but he wrote really great content that he was able to direct. So that was something really admirable that he did. Hello, everyone. This is Bila Day. Sorry to interrupt this episode, but I just wanted to let you know that you were only listening to a preview. So if you would like to listen to the rest of this episode, then you can definitely go to the website, butma.that'smyfavoritemovie.com, or you can go directly to any of these platforms for the full episode. We are available on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Castbox. Please don't hesitate to follow the podcast on any of those platforms so that you can be notified anytime a new episode is available. If you didn't know, our primary release day is every Thursday, but be on the lookout for bonus content as well. Now, if you've listened to the But Ma, That's My Favorite Movie podcast before, that's awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it. So if you have a friend that loves movies like we do, then definitely go ahead and share this podcast with them. And if you're a new listener and you do end up enjoying the podcast, well, then you go ahead and share with a friend too. Also, don't forget to like any of our social media pages so that you can also get updates and regular information about the podcast and about any of the episodes that are coming up. The social media sites that we have a presence on are Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And also, if you want to leave a review, whether constructive or positive, we'd appreciate that too. All right, go ahead and get over to one of the other platforms so we can finish getting into the rest of these movies.